everybody, and welcome to another episode of Death By, where contestants will earn reps for their arguments for a chance to stand on top of the podium pedestal. I am your host, Lauren Kalil. Whoever I decide has the best argument through the final round will earn 30 seconds to talk about a topic of their choosing. On today's episode, we have CrossFit Semifinals athlete Ellia Miller, owner of Brute Strength, Matt Torres, and our very own Tommy Marquez filling in on the show today. It's going to be a good one. Lots of fun on this show. Let's play Death By. Topic number 1. A handful of athletes are in the process of applying for competition region exemptions. If an athlete resides in a region outside of their country of citizenship and they believe that they may advance to the in-person semifinal stage, they can petition CrossFit for an exemption to be placed in a different competition region. The most notable example currently in the news, Ellie Turner, who requested to compete in North America rather than Australia, her country of citizenship, was denied. But looking at the bigger picture, should CrossFit do away with regions for semifinals? And if so, what is a better format? Matt Torres, we are going to let you start round 1.
So I think that the regional format is good for the fans that want to, cheer on the athletes that live in their country. I think where they fall short on this is, are the top 40 men and women in the world making it to the CrossFit Games? So this is the part that I'm saying they need to improve upon. So it doesn't matter if they want to make it a spectacle and get athletes in the regionals, great. But the real question becomes, is countries or continents like Asia and Africa, are they bringing and helping us to decide who the top 40 men and women are? So in short, it doesn't matter to me if they do it. I think they need to make it easier on these athletes. Like in Turner's, uh, you know, in her situation, it is extremely difficult to get out to Australia. So, don't make it difficult. I'm sure they can create a little bit of an exception for athletes that live somewhere year round and plan on competing. But at the end of it, I think the solution actually would be to find the top 40 men and women is just to keep the worldwide leaderboard moving forward, right? They already have the worldwide leaderboard for for quarterfinals. They can probably do that for semifinals, as long as standards that are already upheld in other online competition like the Open and quarterfinals. So that's my 2 cents.
2 points for Matt. Let's get Aaliyah's take.
So I actually like the regionals format, and I like it for a couple of reasons. I think having representation from around the world at the highest level, being the CrossFit Games, I think that helps us to grow and globalize the sport because it allows us to bring in fans from other continents that maybe CrossFit is still growing in, and that's only going to help us move the sport forward. And move the brand of CrossFit forward as a training methodology. I also support the idea of regions because if we take away the citizenship requirement and we say you can just compete wherever you live, then we end up in situations where people are moving to less competitive regions to try and qualify for the games. And what that does is it self-selects for a certain population of athlete that actually has the financial means to do that. Not every athlete is going to have the financial means to pick up their life and move to a different country just to try and qualify for the games. And if we're only allowing the athletes with that financial backing to be able to try to move forward in the sport, I don't think that's the way to continue to grow and professionalize the sport.
3 points for Aaliyah. Tommy, what do you think about this one? Regions or no?
I think we should keep the regions overall. I think there's a sense of national and citizenship pride that's important to the sport that brings an international flair both to the games when we see athletes coming out in different countries and representing different regions. And I do think we tend to overlook that importance to that region specific because maybe we're a little bit more US focused. But one thing I will say is I want to make sure that the rule book, at the very least, is very dialed with regards to how we make exceptions for these athletes in these special scenarios. And do we give them proper lead time? Great example of this 3-year rule for athletes to get exemption as far as living in a specific place only started in 2022. It wasn't codified in the rule book prior to that. But was there any communication or lead time to athletes saying, hey, this 3-year rule is going to come into effect? Or did they just drop it on those athletes? And if that's the case, can we create some sort of build or lead time? So, hey, we're going to give you an exemption after 1 year, then it becomes 2 years, then it becomes 3 years until we build up to this rule. So it's not just creating good rules, but creating the proper ramp up system. I don't know. On ramp sounds like maybe a good way to do it based on our historical, relevancy in CrossFit. But do that so we can implement those rules fairly as well. Because as far as I'm concerned, I look at people like Ellie, like Katrin, who have been in the States for multiple years now, living with their significant other. And I don't see any reason why they can't compete in these spots because they've clearly made a dedicated effort to do so.
4 points for Tommy. I'm curious, when we look at regions as a whole, though, Ellia brings up a good point. We don't want to make it that it's only attainable if you have the financial backing to move to your different regions. But is there something that would actually professionalize the sport more if it just was, to Matt's point, the actually top 40 fittest people in the world?
I'll just jump in and say it depends on, do you want the Olympic model or do you want the world championship model? And those are two different things in my opinion. The world championships or any of some of these elite leagues, when you look at track or maybe even something like the FedEx Cup where golf, where there's no set amount globally, it's just whoever is the best. That's one option. Or do you want the Olympic model where there is the sense of national pride and representing your region, your specific area of the world? And do you want to inspire future generations in those areas as well to potentially take up the sport and get involved? And I think that's just a hard look and decision that CrossFit or anyone moving forward would have to make if they're going to make that change.
I'm curious if what model they're currently using for the top 100 ranking, and if they can just build off of that model, because it seemed like prior to the shift of JB moving around and then leaving, it seemed like there was wanting to be some sort of like, if you're inside the top 20, then we can bypass quarterfinals and get you right into semifinals. And so they're utilizing that top 100 model. And I'm even more curious now. It's like, I still think no matter what model we choose, we will find the number one fittest in the world. Maybe even like the top like 10, maybe even a little bit further on the men's and women's side. I just don't know if the top 40 fittest in the world are going. And it sounds like, kind of, Tommy, what you're saying is like it's a mix of two models. It's like they're using top 100, but they're also utilizing that Olympic style model as well.
Know if there's necessarily a format or a structure that would allow us to only have the top 40 fittest in the world, because in order to get there, everybody would have to be competing on a level playing field. And we have a worldwide leaderboard for quarterfinals, but that's because it's online, and we all know all of the issues that come with an online competition. And then semifinals, there is no worldwide leaderboard because every semifinal is going to be, even if it's the same workouts across all the semifinals, it's still not competing against the same field, competing under the same conditions. Like, you can't really, and people do it anyway, but you can't really compare between semifinals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think even like last year, they did not do a good enough job with making every single workout equal. And so it was really tough to compare some of the workouts, but then you can compare other workouts. So I do believe they would need to do a better job at that. And in terms of, I mean, this is just another one-off idea. In terms of how do you create a sport that's marketable and sellable, if you put all of them on one weekend, you can actually time it out in a way, potentially. I don't know how that looks, but where you have one or two racing at the same time and another two going at the same time, or if not, it doesn't have to be all at the same time, but on the same weekend, long weekend, where it's just like a semifinal weekend of fitness where, if you only have 8 hours or 6 hours or so before the last person went, it's not much different. Like if you're in the last heat, you have an advantage, right? I'm watching heat one, two, three, four, and creating an even better strategy for my athletes. So if they're taking advantage of watching other people go, hours or even like weeks before, we're all doing it, even if it's 10 minutes before they jump out there.
But does it really matter? And I don't want to say does it matter, because yes, it does, but how much does it matter that each semifinal is equal? Because if I'm from North America East, I'm only worried about North America East. If Aaliyah is North America West, that's all she's worried about. If they're not an exact cookie cutter replicate, how much does that weigh into it?
Yeah, I think it only matters if you're switching models. If you're going to stick to a region-based model and you're not necessarily concerned with absolutely getting the top 40 at the games represented equally against the top 100 worldwide in the rankings system, if you're more towards the Olympic model, all that matters is that the athletes that were competing for the same spots in that weekend have similar conditions. That's the most important piece, because that's who you're lining up with. If you want to have that broader applicable top 100 system, the FedEx Cup points, the ATP Tour points, the things that we're, no matter what, we're getting the top 40 fittest people, then you have to be a little bit more controlled. You got to make sure the indoor facilities are all the same. The equipment is all the same. The floor layouts are all the same. It has to become as sterilized as possible. I don't know if that's possible given all the variables of this sport. Also, I don't know if you're trying to kill me, Matt, but on the media side, that would be so tough for us. It would be like
We would never
multiple.
sleep.
It would be like multiple games weekends. It'd be like the games taking place in like 8 time zones in 1 year. It sounds awesome, but yeah. All kidding aside, I don't know if CrossFit or fitness as a sport can be that sterilized in that instance, given most of the time we don't even know what the programming looks like.
Yeah. I think like now that we're talking about it, I think what the model would work is if like the semifinals is the last chance for the fill-in spots essentially. So if you accumulate enough points throughout the year and you have to hit X amount of like major competitions and whatever, so on and so forth, you can almost earn enough points to get yourself entrance into the CrossFit Games, in which case we'd probably end up seeing the same people within the top 10. And then the semifinals is like, look, everyone's here to compete, everyone's still going to be there, but some of the people have already earned their spot through years and years of accumulating points, and obviously it forces them to go to competition. So it's not like, all right, season's done, I won the CrossFit Games, I don't have to compete at all, and no one gets to see their favorite athlete compete ever until semifinals. So maybe it's done in a way where they can accumulate points just like how it would be for ATP and the PGA.
Scrap it. All of this was a rough draft. Just start over. Redo the whole season, the format, everything.
And that's actually like that's what I thought with the PFAA after the games. That's what I thought the direction was going to lead into. And I even think when Berg created or helped to create the top 100, it sounded like that was his initial plan of action, was how do we utilize this so that, you know, we can create a point system that's useful, not just like we have all these points, but semifinals is still semifinals. And, you may not even make it to the games and still be considered like a top 30 potentially because of one off weekend potentially. But your entire season has been phenomenal.
Well, we will see how and if it plays out. Moving now into round number 2. Well, the Open is just 3 weeks away, and one of the several pieces of info that we're anxiously waiting on, of course, the workouts, but also floor plans that go along with them. Do you guys love it or hate it? Floor plans, whether it's for the Open or just online qualifiers in general. Aaliyah, we will let you start round number 2.
All right, this might be an unpopular opinion, but I like floor plans. I think especially for the open, when you think about an affiliate trying to run Friday night lights, trying to run multiple heats of an open workout, if they can have that preparation ahead of time to know what to expect going into that, I think that really helps with the affiliates to be able to run the open for their community. And then from a competitive standpoint, I think it's really useful for um, leveling the playing field across gyms with different layouts, athletes with different setups in their gym where maybe somebody can have their equipment all right next to each other because their gym layout allows for that, but then another athlete can't, and they've got these longer transition periods. So if we think about like one of the things the PFAA implemented at Wadapalooza was making sure that if there were staggered barbells or staggered equipment across the lanes, you're running down, touching your pylon between rounds to make sure that every athlete is covering the exact same distance over the course of the workout. So floor plans allow us to make sure that every athlete is covering the exact same distance over the course of the workout. And when you have most online competitions are such a large population of athletes competing, when seconds really matter, and a couple seconds can be 100 spots on a leaderboard. I think it's really important to have that normalized across the board.
3 points for Ellia. Tommy, love it or hate it?
Ooh, I think I'm going to build off of what Ellia just said. I think I love it as long as it's not a requirement. I think as a suggestion and as a way to provide an option for affiliate owners to lay out things in a very clear and concise way. I do think one of the beauties of the affiliate system is that people can set up shop and create a community in a variety of different shapes and locations and floor layouts and gym setups. And I think sometimes just a broad spread floor plan that's expected to be done across the board just isn't feasible. So I like it to the affiliate playbook, right? It's a system of best practices, something that you can build on from year to year. That's like, hey, if you're new to the sport, or if you're someone that maybe made quarterfinals for the first time, or is new to the open, these are ways for you to set it up. Because let's be honest, there are also people setting this up at their home gym that they have to record everything. That can also be beneficial too, depending on what they're familiar with. So I do like floor plans. I do like giving options and ideas to set it up. I just don't want to make it required because it doesn't properly serve every gym, because it also makes the assumption that every gym just is laid out the same way. So
2 points for Tommy. Matt, you know a thing or two about owning an affiliate, running an affiliate. Is this a help or a nightmare?
So I love it. So in terms of the affiliate, I do love it because, I mean, you come in and you're running, let's say, the first heat of athletes. If you did not have the setup going down, you would have your first group doing it, and they're like, I think it's going to be best done this way. And then people in the next heat, they see it and they're like, that's not that efficient. Let me do this. And so they become like the transition king and queens. And then in terms of the athlete and the sport, I absolutely hate setting this stuff up. There is not anything that stresses me out more than having to put tape on the ground and measure it and then remeasure it every single time. Setting up the cameras, stressing out about cameras going off, like the whole nine. But it also allows, especially for quarterfinals, because quarterfinals is vital, it allows us to make sure that the athletes' transition times are identical to the best of their ability. I think this is the best that they could possibly do to ensure that, I think now the top 40 going into semifinals are the top 40. Because as we all know, I still remember this one workout. It was like wall balls and rowing. And I remember the setup there. It was slightly dangerous. I think it was, I forgot which one, 19 something, slightly dangerous. It's like the ball's falling down and people are already rowing. And it's like, and then some people didn't have access to the wall, so they're putting their rower underneath their pull-up bar. It was just a little crazy. So I think it also helps with safety as well. So I mean, I love it.
3 points for Matt. Okay, I do remember that workout. Who doesn't? Because Tommy probably killed all of our scores. He's a tall man over there. Loves
I
to
called it
row,
big.
loves wall balls.
I called it Big Guy's Delight. That was my nickname for that one.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, question for all of you, because you all said you love it. Isn't there part of the sport, though, that relies on an athlete's ability to have strategy, think outside the box, and set themselves up to, yes, I guess you could call that transition time, but have their own format that might suit them best? Or is that just more of a negative than a positive in this situation?
If that was part of the sport, then it would be allowed at competition. I think if there really was a we want to see how you can best strategize your transitions between movements, then we would show up to an empty lane with equipment that we get to set up however we want. Instead of, hey, your barbell's here, your rig is there, your rower's there, you're going to run down, touch your pylon. So I think if we think about the way it's set up in a live competition, we're trying to emulate that the best we can in an online version, because the online version is the prerequisite to make it to the live competition.
That would be a broadcast
Yeah.
nightmare
Oh my
of
gosh. Could you
chaos.
imagine?
How do you
I,
know what's going on?
I mean, there's also a safety aspect too, right? I think it's important if you want to best set up athletes for the experience that they're going to have in live competition, because I think most of us agree that live competition is king. If you're an athlete, you want to step out onto the floor, see the whites of your opponent's eyes, and be able to say that you won. And if you don't do that properly, then I don't know. I think you're going to be in for a rude awakening if you do make it to the top of the sport, if you do go to the games. And so I think making sure that there's enough structure to set up athletes for that, also keep them safe. And having that structure, I think, also makes it easy to professionalize and sell as a package deal later on down the line. So having those types of little bits of structure, but also making some allowances, at least in the quarterfinal and open level, for those cases like gyms, I think is a win-win in both scenarios.
Yeah, I think the as you get closer to the in-person competition, like you're awarded with like a more even level playing field. We're in a sport where we all understand that you have to do online, qualifying on open and quarterfinals. So I think we're all in the common understanding of like this is how the sport is, and it's doing just fine with that first part. I think the next level of thought now as a coach is, yeah, we can't move our bar or we can't move this, but there are little areas that we can still, as coaches and athletes, strategize where we're going to put our chalk, where we're going to, where are we going to do our rest, where, how tight will we tie our shoes? Will we put, will we put our backpack on this way? Will we tighten out the ruck right here? It's like those are things that if you have the experience, you actually gain an edge. And what people don't realize is you might be fit. You might even be fitter than the person next to you. But there's little pieces of knowledge that you can only gain just by going through the competition, that you actually have an advantage over the ones that are brand new. And so when you see rookies make it for the first time, it's like they've probably been to semifinals, a handful of times, and they've gone through all these bumps and bruises, and they're picking up these little cues and understanding there's so much more to the game, even like counting your breaths on things, right? It's like there's so much more to the game that you see the like these, the top 5 in the world or whatever it may be, they do it so effortlessly and without even like thought, but it just takes a little bit of time. So it gets even more, I would say, like uh, micro focusing on things. Now I say micro focusing, but not done in a way where it's like this is all I'm thinking about. It's like second nature to them.
Counting your breaths. I hyperventilate, so I don't fall in that category, but thanks, Matt.
You and me both.
Just move, just move slower.
I'd get
You
time
got it.
capped every time.
Yeah, you got to move slower to move fast sometimes.
Wise words from Matt. Thank you. I am surprised that everybody loved that, but nonetheless, okay. On to topic number 3. And speaking of the open, in recent years, the format has switched from 5 weeks down to 3, but we typically have seen 4 scored tests. But this is CrossFit. We're always changing. Every year is different. over or under for 4 scored tests this year? And why do you stand by your answer? Tommy Marquez, we're going to start with you on this final round.
Can I bet a push? Is this like roulette where you can go red, black, but you can also bet the green, and that's like a spot on, or you bet the number exactly? I think 4 is like the number. If I had to bet, I mean, life's too short to bet the under, so I'm gonna bet the over, and I'm gonna roll with more, just because I think, as someone who my CrossFit Games experience is never going to advance past quarterfinals. I just want more opportunities to have tests and data points and benchmarks and knowledge about my own fitness and where my journey is, especially as I barrel towards 40 years old. So I think I'll take the over, just because I like throwing in some 2-parters and giving some people more bang for their buck. Because let's be honest, if you always hear people like, oh, where does my $20 go to? Where does my money go to? And I think one easy way to start justifying that is just give them more things to sink their teeth into when it comes to the open.
So then would you argue that 4 tests is the perfect number?
For 3 weeks, yes. Just because if you start to do 2 back-to-back tests in each week, that starts to become a headache, I think, and sort of defeats the purpose of the 3-week open for making it more affiliate friendly. So I think you can kind of straddle the fence just a little bit by throwing that extra one maybe in week 3, and then also still keeping it to a condensed version to make it affiliate friendly.
Okay. 3 points for Tommy. So 2-part question. Over or under 4, and then what is the perfect number of scored tests? Matt, you're up next.
I'm gonna say under. I think 3 is gonna be the perfect score, and I'm speaking from a stance of affiliate owners. As an affiliate owner, I would really stress out during this time. Number one is like, how do you convince someone that they should sign up for the thing that they don't even understand? That I truly don't even fully understand how to elaborate to people. It's like the only way to make them understand is to force them into it and be like, now do you get it? So during that time, it gets a little stressful as an affiliate owner when you're trying to plan out when it's going to be ran. You're trying to get people to not do these workouts again, right? Because now the open has different implications as it did before in the past. It was important to repeat workouts before in the past. Now, I believe there was 5 weeks, I think, or 4 weeks when we first started, and that was just chaos. Having to describe to new people that come into your gym that Friday and sometimes Saturday, maybe even Sunday sometimes, is closed down for people to do these things that they're not actually getting coaching at all, but they're getting judged, but you can't really coach them while you're judging because you're supposed to be a judge. That would create so much stress on me, where I'm like, the only time where I would feel relief is in the moment on our Friday Night Lights, where I'm only having to judge and cheer people on, and then drink a beer at the end for it finally being over. I actually thought it was a big relief of stress when they said 3 weeks, and I was like, "Thank you. If we can bring this down to 2, that'd be great." But I'm happy with 3. If
1
everyone
scored
else is happy
test.
with 3, I'm happy with 3. But I thought Tommy brought up some really good points. Like, if you're gonna pay X amount of dollars for that, you want to keep competing. And I do believe that CrossFit is doing a better job at, not only is it 3 weeks of the open, but now we're talking about a very tough week of quarterfinals as well. So it gives everyone kind of like that taste of competition, where it's like you get one weekend of, 4 to 5 events of competition. Guys, this is kind of like what competition looks like. What we're about to see at semifinals, this is exactly the same exact format that we saw at quarterfinals. So, you know, 3 weeks, keep the under, 3 workouts, fine with that.
And 3 tests is the perfect amount for you.
Yeah. I mean, they get tested every single day. It's like, who do you want? Like, like you get 3 weeks to figure out where you stand in the world. But I mean, I feel like, you know, they get tested all the time just by showing up in class.
I'm going to give you 5 points because it's an answer that I truly didn't expect. We got some support there too. Ellia, what are your thoughts? Oh, and Matt's like, okay, I'm out. I got 5 points. Amazing.
Takes his 5 points and runs.
And runs.
I got
heads for
5
the hills.
points for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go. Hell yeah.
Aaliyah,
pull my
what do
notes
you think here?
All right, so I would also like to bet 4, but seeing as we can't do that, what I would like to happen versus what I think is going to happen, I think it's going to be, if I had to bet over or under, I would bet under, just because I don't see CrossFit implementing more than one 2 scored workout in a weekend. I don't think that they see a need for that, and I don't think that most affiliates see a need for that. Um, but from the standpoint of this being a competition, trying to have a well-rounded test, trying to make sure the right people move forward, um, I think the appropriate number of scores would be 4 at least. I think with a 4-score test, you can accurately test multiple different time domains. You can make sure you have a good mix of monostructural weightlifting gymnastics. And you can actually get a well-rounded test. If you look at Zalos games, they were able to program a very well-rounded test in 4 scores. And it's really hard to do, but it's possible. I think if you brought that down to 3, now you're inherently going to have a bias. And if we're looking at the open as a way to get people to the games, then it doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, the people who are going to be in contention for the games are going to get through the open no matter what the programming is, no matter how many scored tests there are. But if you want to look at the open as a community event that allows people to actually accurately gauge where they are worldwide, and for the people who maybe are on the cut line of trying to make quarterfinals and they want it and need it to be a fair, well-rounded test, I think 4 is an appropriate number of scores.
Oh man, sorry Matt, I can't let you win because Aaliyah just came with the 1-2 punch, 6 points for her. She wins the show.
That's really good.
Oh,
Congratulations,
I beat Tommy.
Aaliyah.
Did I beat Tommy?
yes, you got me.
You did.
Nice.
Matt's
All right,
like, as long as I didn't come in last. I mean, you have a dog on the show. You couldn't have come in last because you brought a furry friend.
Yes.
Sorry,
Oh.
Tommy. He has no dogs today.
It's all right. I'll fall on that sword.
Aaliyah, 30 seconds, a topic of your choosing. What do you want to talk about?
Oh, I was not prepared for this. Can I defer to Matt so we can hear about his dog?
Sure, she has given Matt 30 seconds to talk about whatever you want.
What if we each get all right, here we go. I think we need to get, I mean, look, I'm talking in terms of a coach of competitive athletes. I no longer own an affiliate. I do believe that I'm really excited about how the games are about to go down this year. It's cool to see that the games tickets have sold out. I do believe that from what Castro has mentioned to us so far, I think he said 90 or 95% of the events will be held indoors. I think that's really good for a lot of reasons. Number one, they sold out, right? So the seats are going to be filled. It's going to be an awesome energy out there. Number two, it gives them plenty of time to develop each event so that it's ran in a way that they can both A, test appropriately, and B, give the audience and the fans a really good show, and then C, get the proper media and cameras in the right places. And they've got plenty of time to do this. They don't have to worry about workouts being affected by weather. They don't have to worry about heat exhaustion of the athletes besides 1 or 2 potential events. So I'm really excited about how things are going down this year. And then one other thing, I really got torn apart earlier in the year when Savan mentioned our podcast, where I was like, look, I think that they need to separate age group from the professional athletes. Little did I know that was actually going to happen. It happened, and I'm really glad that age group gets the time they deserve. I'm really glad that the individuals, and I think team are still working together, that they'll get the appropriate time as needed, and everyone is being treated like they are a top-notch athlete, as they should, because they've earned it through many, many years or hard year of training.
Are you saying this is going to be the best games ever?
I don't know. I can't say that.
That was too far out there.
Yeah, it seems like it should be better, but I really don't know yet. You know, it's hard to tell.
Time will tell. Well, Ellia, congratulations. Matt, Tommy, thanks for joining us on the show. Appreciate all of you and all of your ideas that you now have put out into the universe as we still await several questions within the space. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next time.